My name is Era, and I'm the host of the Tamil Creator Podcast. I chat with creators from all over the world to share their stories and discuss hot topics in a way that I hope inspires, educates, and entertains you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tamil Creator. I'm your host, and today I'm your host, Era. I'm going to be chatting with someone that's calling in or chatting with me all the way from the East Coast. Her name is Sindu Sivapalan, and she's currently a financial advisor with RBC. And about 4 years ago, her and her husband made the very adventurous move from Toronto to the East Coast in Canada, I think just before the pandemic started. And now they're kind of building a new life out there with 2 young kids, and they're kind of in the real estate game. So just wanted to kind of share their story because I think it's probably super interesting for some of you that might have been on the brink of thinking about making a move like this, or even if you don't have kids, just, exploring a world outside of your comfort zone in Toronto or wherever you are today. So Sindu, thank you so much for jumping on.
Thanks, Sarah, for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's funny with social media. This is the first time I'm chatting with Sindu, but I know her husband because I play basketball with him. But I guess it's cool / creepy where you feel like you kind of know somebody's life, but they have no idea who you are.
Sorry, Ara, when you popped up in my DM, I was like, why does he want to connect with me, Sharon? What do I have to offer? And so I've always been impressed with your work. So when you came up, I was like, I think he's got the wrong person. I don't know what I'm going to share with him but then, you got talking and explaining what you do and what you want to do with this, our conversation and platform. And I'm excited. I'm excited to share our journey. It's been definitely adventurous, just like you said. But yeah, no, we're excited to share our journey.
Yeah, when I pick guests, it's like part sharing the story, part me being selfish in terms of learning information.
Yeah.
Because what you did is amazing. Me and my wife were thinking, not now, but we'd love to in the future. Our thing has always been we hate winter in Canada. We love it otherwise. But from December 26th to March 15th, we'd love to go to 2 different places each winter. Portugal is on the top of the list.
Oh yeah.
So seeing what you guys did, and it's you guys walk the walk, right? A lot of people talk the talk, including myself, but it's really cool to see that you guys have actually built up the courage and made the move, because it's so, I can't imagine kind of leaving, Toronto just because obviously family and friends, but it's not really an excuse. I think it's just more so it's just comfort, right? So you guys broke out of your comfort zone, which I admire.
So us moving out here, it was never something that was planned for years or anything like that. It just kind of landed in our lap. And I think Sharon and I, we've been together since we were 15 years old. And a lot of things in our life kind of just happened and we learned from it. And we just went with the flow. And so at that moment in time, when the offer, Sharon's job offer came in and they asked him to move to Moncton, we were at a point in our life where we weren't planning on having kids at that very moment. We knew we wanted to start a family, but we were at a point in our life where we were traveling. We would take 3 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks, unpaid vacation, and we would go anywhere you could think of. That was our goal. And so we were living in Stouffville, Ontario, paying mortgages and all this sort of thing. And life was expensive and we couldn't travel the way we wanted to travel. We wanted to travel far. We wanted to travel with unpaid time off for long periods of time. So when Sharon's job offer came up, Sharon's like, I'm going to have to take a package. And I said, wait a minute, where is Moncton? And I remember him calling in and I was like, where's Moncton? And I Googled it and I was like, and I looked right away, realtor.ca. I'm obsessed with realtor.ca. And I have been since I was a kid, but I'm like, Sharon, you could buy a property for $200,000, maybe even less. And I said, let's go and house hack, almost buy a property and rent out a portion of it. So we weren't paying anything out of pocket and travel. So anyways, this went back and forth through his work and negotiation with the job. And it almost took us 8 months to firm up this move. And the Monday he goes and accepts the job. The Friday I find out I'm pregnant with my son.
Wow.
So after 8 months of mulling over this, letting our family know and all of this, that same week I find out we're having our son. And so anyways, we had already made up our mind. We were that's just how we are. We just go with the flow. This is what's come our way. We'll take it. We'll go. I'll go on my mat leave and we'll travel with him, because I looked up travel and they're free before too. So I said, we'll just travel with him and I'll be on mat leave. And so we left. I was 7 months pregnant. We landed in Moncton at 1 a.m. with 4 luggages. Our house had been packed up and moved out here. And I remember landing at the airport. I had this huge belly and we had to take a cab to a hotel. And I remember sleeping thinking, what the heck are we doing? Like, I don't know the first thing about raising this kid. We're new parents and we're out here in Moncton. Like, and it was devastating. So it wasn't all just like butterflies and sunshine. Like that very moment, Sharon and I were so still at the hotel. We didn't move. We didn't even change. We just lay there like, this is a big mistake, is what I thought. And I said, you said 2 years and we're moving back. 2 years you're going to dedicate to this job. And I had this clock on like a timeline on my phone when we were going to move back. And then we had my son. And then we really got to appreciate what the East Coast had to offer for our family. And that's really a much slower pace, affordable housing, much more favorable cost of living. It's really a wonderful place to raise a family. And so, although we weren't planning on coming here and starting a family, like many things that have happened in our life, I think our son Solon coming into the picture made us truly appreciate what the East Coast had to offer. So we didn't see it right away, but I'd say maybe 8 months. It would have been when the pandemic hit and everybody was trapped at home, right? It wasn't just us not socializing and missing all our family and friends. Everyone was doing it. And realizing what we had here, like the outdoors, the beaches, commute that was like 10 minutes. That was it. And anyways, that's how that was a start of falling in love with the East Coast.
So this is where we are now, but you kind of said something, and I always like asking this question, especially now as a parent. But you said you've always loved realtor.com ever since you were a kid, which is a very odd thing for a kid to be thinking about,
Oh,
maybe. So let's go back to like your childhood or your formative teenage years,
okay.
and you like the way you were raised, or like whatever happened, like something major or definitive happening during that time. How did that play a part in you becoming a financial advisor, having the courage to move to, leaving everything behind to go to the East Coast when you're 7 months pregnant, getting kind of the real estate game. So talk about that a bit more. This episode is sponsored by nobody. That's right, nobody. So if you could be kind enough to hit that subscribe button, that would mean a lot to me.
I was born in Montreal, born and raised there till I was about 5 or 6. I moved to Toronto. We lived in a really small apartment downtown Toronto. A lot of Tamil people in that building. We met a lot of Tamil people. And then my parents bought their first condo out in Mississauga. And I was in grade 3, so 8. And from that very moment, I was very involved in the real estate transaction. I mean, from attending every single showing to buying that condo to meeting the realtor. Like I remember her name. Her name was Bozana, and she was with Royal LePage. And I remember how she looks. Like I was obsessed with real estate. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you know, but when you visit families' houses or your friends' parents' houses, it's just amazing. It's in our community to have the grand home tour. Like you
Yes.
visit their home, you get a cup of coffee or tea, and then you see the house, right? I would be dying for that house tour. Like I would sit there like, when are they going to show me this home? And it's just that part of me was innate. Like I think that's just something that comes natural to me. I like houses, I like homes, I'm curious. But a very like I would say a moment in the past that really stands out to me is when I was 16, my dad's good friend became a realtor. And he was his really good friend. He was an uncle to us. And he became a realtor. And I wanted out of this condo. I really wanted a single family home. And I don't know if you know this, but like on cable TV, there's a channel that used to show homes for sale in the surrounding areas. It was like realtor.ca, but on cable TV. I
No, I
don't,
did not know that.
okay, a lot of people don't. I used to watch that quite often. And so it was literally realtor.ca, but on TV, and you'd get the listing and then you would get pictures of the home. That was it. It was 2D. It was no 3D virtual tour or anything like that. And so I would watch this, and there was this house I liked, and it was in Brampton, and we were living in Mississauga at the time. And Brampton was a lot cheaper than Mississauga. So I was like, oh, this looks affordable for my mom and dad. And I remember calling that realtor and I said, what do you think they can get for their condo in Mississauga? And he was like, oh, X amount. And I said, okay, I have a digital camera. I can take pictures of the house and send it to you. Do you think you can list it? And we'll just see. We'll just see. And then we'll approach Uppa and say, hey, we got, this offer, whatever. So my mom was on board. That night we took our digital camera, we took pictures, and we listed the house, the condo. And
Sorry,
anyway,
how old are you exactly when this is happening?
I think I was 15 or 16.
This is really odd but interesting. Keep going.
So we listed the house, and anyways, we got tons of offers, and then my dad was on board. My uncle started showing us houses in Brampton, and then we found this beautiful single family home in Brampton, affordable for my parents. And so we sold the condo and we moved there. And that was the start of that was my first real interaction with real estate and banking and going to the bank with my parents. My parents are creatures of habit, right? So they had one financial advisor at TD Bank. They might have had her for like 10, 15 years. I don't even know. Like, I know her name. Her name's Ingrid. I know her very well because I went to the bank meetings with them. And I remember even at 15, 16, I would go in and we would talk about mortgages. They would talk about mortgage rates. They would talk about acquiring this mortgage, their T4s, incomes. I was just introduced to it and I was curious at a young age about it.
What was the first time that you're like, oh, real estate? Like, that sounds interesting. Like, do you remember that or no?
For as long as I can remember, this has just been something that I've been into, like from the beginning of time. I almost want to say that's just been me, but like my personal relationship with real estate would be that was through my parents, right? But my personal relationship with real estate would have been I graduated with an accounting background and I was working at an accounting firm and it was just not right for me. So I quit and I started working at David's Tea. I opened up their shop in Brampton and so I was a store manager. And then an employee of RBC who was working in the mall came in and poached me for a job. And that's how I started at RBC in a totally different role. And then I moved on and I became a financial advisor. And I've been a financial advisor for a very long time. But it was through becoming a financial advisor and digging through my clients and talking to them that I found out how they were buying properties and how they were doing it. And so really my job's the one that led me into personally getting into real estate. And I think Sharon and I, we weren't married at the time. We were maybe 23 or 24. And we found a property in Stouffville that was like a builder that was had a property for sale. And we didn't have any money saved. Like we had just graduated, we just started working. And I had a client that used like a personal line of credit to do the deposit on this new build. And I said, Sharon, like we have the income for it. Let's get a personal line of credit together and put the deposit on this townhouse in Stouffville. And so we did, without telling our parents, because that would like they would have been like, absolutely not. You're not using a line of credit to buy a home. But we did. So we had 1 year to pay down this line of credit. And so the both of us just we put a deposit on this townhouse in Stouffville and started paying down this line of credit. And in that 1 year, we had paid a significant amount down on that line of credit and closed on the house. Our parents wouldn't let us move in unless we were married. So we said, fine, we'll get married. And we got married. I think it was 25. We got married at 25 and moved into this townhouse. That was my first interaction with real estate.
It's amazing. I have like, I don't want to say the obsession you had with real estate. I mean, I love like learning about real estate and just different investing tools in general. But I remember because my parents weren't as like English isn't their native language like most, I think, Tamil parents that kind of immigrated here. But I was kind of the translator, but through translation of like, like mortgage stuff or anything financial. I was very curious. So whenever like things were said, I was always curious, like, what is a fixed mortgage? What's a variable mortgage? And then it became really about math because the example you said where your parents and most people would have kind of shunned you for making a decision like that. It's just really math because the interest rates on a line of credit are like super low, or they were obviously like probably at the time you bought it. So people are like, oh, it's debt, it's bad. But if it's like at 2 or 3% or whatever it was, and you're gonna make 4 or 5% appreciation on like I don't know, like on an asset that you don't completely own it, the math just makes perfect sense to do what you did. So
it does.
So I'm like a math guy. So like for me, when you said that, I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. But for most people, they're like, oh, no, that's a bad decision. I was like, no, that's a great decision. Because I remember when we got our condo, I think it was, for me, it's like, how can you maximize returns on the money you put in? So instead of putting 20% down, try putting down 5%, even if you pay the penalty. But that penalty is nothing when you think about the appreciation on a property. So that's what I thought of right away. So I love it.
Yeah, no, and bang on. I mean, math's my absolute favorite subject. And that was exactly the way even Sharon and I, that's the way we looked at it. Appreciation, interest rate, and this just makes absolute sense. So that's how we first got into it.
So like as a financial advisor, you kind of talked about you were at David's Tea, you were like a store manager, you got poached. It wasn't like obviously I don't think you started that role as the first role, but you eventually got to that
Yeah.
position.
Yeah.
And you kind of get to work with different people, different backgrounds. It's really cool because I guess you get a kind of a sneak peek at like the financial lives of different kinds of people, and
Yes.
obviously maybe some of them do fairly well.
Yes.
What's like one or two or a couple of things you've learned just looking at the portfolios of these people and how they invest and how they make money and how they invest money?
The ones I looked at, a lot of them were in real estate investing, obviously. Couple of things I looked at is use your equity. Use your equity to work for you. I mean, obviously make smart decisions, calculate your risks, but use your equity to work for you. And so I had seen this client that would come in and refinance one property, buy another property, put a deposit on another property. Now, like disclaimer, obviously you have to calculate your risk, right? You got to look at the environment that you're in. It can work backwards for you as well. But as long as you're doing that, that was what he was doing. He was refinancing his property, pulling out equity and buying another property. I started seeing people in when I moved to Stouffville. So in my role, I was in this role in Georgetown, Ontario. And then I moved when I got married to Stouffville. I moved to the Stouffville branch there and I was doing the role in Stouffville. And so in Stouffville, I met more clients new to Canada, more immigrant clients in Stouffville, Ontario versus Georgetown, Ontario. So I saw a different form of investing. So in Georgetown, Ontario, it was very much so in registered plans, right? So a lot of mutual fund investors and things of that nature. But when I moved to Stouffville, Ontario, I saw a lot of real estate investments and similar to a lot of people in our community. I mean, our parents and their generation have done so well with what they came here with, right? Like, I mean, that's a whole nother story, but a lot of it came from real estate investing. And so I met this one client who was who immigrated to Canada maybe 30 years ago. And what he was doing is similar to what we are doing here in Moncton. And he was buying multifamily homes and he was refinancing his property. And he started a lot earlier, right? So he would have started, I think I was in Stouffville probably 2015. And so he would have started maybe like 20 years ago, right? So he was buying these properties for like 200,000. And you couldn't mock that sort of style because it really boiled down to purchase price, and purchase prices when we started looking into it were through the roof, right? The numbers didn't make sense, but for him, he could buy a property, rent it out, and make a profit, right? So it made sense for him, and it was easier for him to refinance and buy other properties because now these properties had grown so much that he could buy commercial units, which had a way better rate of return in terms of rent to debt servicing. So anyways, I used to bug him. I used to ask a lot of questions. I used to look through his financials. I used to do a lot of his lending and a similar mock style that we started doing here in Moncton.
Did you know that every time you left a 5 out of 5 review for this podcast, a Tamil parent lets their child pursue a career in the creative arts? Okay, that's probably not true, but if there's a chance that it is, do you really want to jinx it? Leave a review. Do it for the young creative in you. I absolutely love the multifamily investment class. Like you said, it's probably hard to do in the GTA. I mean, there's still opportunities, but you have to like buy at the 16, 20 unit kind of
Yes.
levels, and it's
Yep.
hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's because of the forced appreciation. That's like I wouldn't even want to do single family anymore. I think it's like multifamily is the only way to go. But obviously, you went to a market where it's a bit more feasible with like yourself without getting any investors. But um, yeah, so I guess why don't we kind of get into that? So you guys moved to the East Coast. You're 7 months pregnant. You're like, what the hell did I do?
Yeah.
You're sitting in this hotel. What are your next moves? Like, how did you guys have a property that you already purchased before
We
going there?
rented.
We rented. Okay.
We rented for a year. And then we scoped up the area and we bought actually we were looking at multifamilies to buy for ourselves to live in. But we kind of had an idea this was going to be a little bit longer term. So we bought our single family home. And from there we purchased our first and this actually is mostly my husband though in sort of taking that plunge that this is what we're going to do in the multifamily investing. He heavily, well, both of us heavily did research on like the BRRRR strategy, right? And we purchased our first duplex is what we purchased. And this was in we purchased that duplex and I was, I believe, 5 or 6 months pregnant with my daughter. So in the middle of that, we purchased this duplex and decided that we were going to do the general contracting ourselves and the
Wow.
demolition. And so the strategy was to buy like an extremely rundown property, right? So we started off, which in hindsight, we could have gradually got into it, but we started off with issues including drugs, prostitution, tons of break-ins, all in this property. And we're like, okay, we'll buy that because it was like, I don't know, like $150,000 or something like that. And it was a 2 unit with a potential of a third unit. My father-in-law and my husband did the demo. They cleaned, like they fixed that whole place up. My husband did a lot of the general contracting, bringing in trades to do all the work. So the project was a big learning for us, and I guess it took a lot longer than we wanted, but we learned so much from it, which we probably would have learned in time, but we learned it really quick, like in a year. Anyways, that one was extremely successful. It was over 100% for our, meaning we got all of our money out and then some. The rent that we generated from that covered that single family home's mortgage.
Wow.
So it was we were in a really good place because I was taking almost 18 months off with my son. And then I wanted to take 18 months off with my daughter. And really, like EI and maternity leave, it doesn't give you much to live off of. But by investing in this duplex and the income that it generated, it helped pay for our living expenses. And I was able to take that time off. So that started this snowball effect into our next projects. So that's where we are right now.
Have you heard of the fire movement?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think about that? Like, is that kind of the motivation or like some of the inspiration behind what you're doing or?
Yeah, it really is. And I think I talked about, like, I started blogging a little bit and then I talked about that, but it really is. We want to be able to retire early. We don't want to be doing the grind for so long. And I think a lot of people in our community are doing just that. Like we're impressed being in the East Coast and watching what Tamil Canadians are doing out in Toronto too. Like I think a lot of people are doing that. I think our parents paved that path for us. Their work ethics, I mean, they worked so hard and you saw them work, that we're on this side of it able to say, I don't want to work like them, but grateful that they worked like that for us, right? The freedom to be able to do what we want to do. And that doesn't necessarily mean not working. When I say retire, I don't mean not working. I could continue to work at RBC, but I choose to work at RBC. So these are the things that I think have really pushed Sharon and I into further developing this and let's say building that foundation, a strong enough foundation to make those decisions later on.
Like as you're kind of building out your real estate portfolio slowly but surely, you get to this goal of being financially independent in the sense that you have a choice of working part-time or not having to grind and just kind of do what you want with your time. What would you do with that time?
So I recently accepted a job it's still with RBC, but as a commercial lender. And I'll be honest, right now, if I had the financial freedom to not have to do that job, I would still be doing that job. And I'll tell you why. I've learned quite a bit in my role as a financial advisor in terms of the personal lending. I am so thrilled to start this next chapter in acquiring the knowledge in commercial lending. So it just worked out that my passion in real estate, it lines up with what my job is, right? And if I can understand the commercial lending part of it and acquire that skill, I'm looking forward to it. So I would be doing this if I had the freedom. But on the other side, another part of the area that I want to develop, and again, it's commercial, is I would love to be building homes. I'd love to be designing and building homes, cottages to be exact, and like resort style cottages. I mean, that would be a goal of ours, definitely one day, but step by step.
It's not like what you've done is theoretical. You've actually done it and it's proving to work. And, people, your friends and family who are talking to you probably are hearing about your stories and kind of where you're at. Does it convince people to kind of try something similar, or even move to the East Coast and just follow your formula? Or do you hear skepticism like, yeah, that sounds great, but blah, 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 blah? Like what kind of reaction are you getting from
It's
friends and
funny.
family?
My dad is the biggest. Like he would tell you, oh, no, 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 tenants are bad. Oh, this is going to go really bad. And anyways, my dad moved out to the East Coast in November.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
Yeah, and my sister and my brother-in-law, really proud of them. They just got into their first multifamily, so they have moved out here. They've been here for a year as well.
Wow, you
So
got the whole gang out there. Wow.
my immediate family, yes, my immediate family is here now officially. It's my sister and I and my parents. So my parents sold that Brampton home and they moved here in November of just this what year? 2022. Yeah. So it's been a few months that they've been here. And my sister and my mom's retiring soon, so it just worked out. And my sister moved here in 2021.
Now, how about on Sharon's side?
Sharon's side, his parents are retired. They come here often, but they're not definite, but their plan might be to sell and move to Moncton as well. And the
Wow.
reason being is it's a like for my parents, I'll speak on behalf of my parents. It's a different type of financial freedom that they're going to get by moving to Moncton, which they wouldn't have had in Toronto. And so the way that they're going to be living here is something they would have never been able to do. They wouldn't have even dreamt it. But that financial freedom that it gives them by moving here, and I mean, I'm here and the grandbabies are here too. I mean, that probably helped them, but they wouldn't have been able to have this financial freedom. Now, if they stayed there, they were still in a pretty healthy situation, but we would have inherited that, my sister and I, right? They wouldn't have been able to really reap the benefits of all that equity they built into their house. And now some are great in terms of like short-term lending. They did different things, but my parents weren't those type of people. They had their house, you pay down their house, and that was it. So this really gives them an opportunity to, let's call it, live lavishly.
So you convinced the family, but none of the friends bit on the hook?
Not yet. I mean, not yet, not yet. I mean, we're always preaching it. They joke about it. We're always recruiting. We're always telling people how great it is, but no, not yet.
Okay, you're gonna give a pitch to people listening now. So you said there's, obviously unexpected benefits and kind of lifestyle and a bunch of other things, making that move from expensive GTA to the East Coast. So
Yeah.
what are some of those things that somebody that's listening might be like kind of on the fence and you're gonna give them that pitch to kind of put them over the fence to join you over there? Money can be hard to come by, but here's a $100 opportunity for you. Join my free newsletter for free exclusive content and a free chance to win $100 when I hold special draws. Did I mention that it's free?
So for us, we were able to. I have a like I during COVID I did my certificate in interior design. That's like my passion. I was able to do that. Like I was able to do that. I wouldn't have been able to do that when if I was in Toronto, right? We bought a piece of land. We built our custom home just the way we wanted to. We drew it on a piece of paper. We contracted all the sub trades and we built this house. I would have never been able to do that. My children go to a great school. I mean, they're 1 and 3, right? So right now we're talking about like just childcare, but my childcare expenses are nothing. And to really put black and white and break it down for you, they're in a great Montessori program. I can drop them off at 7:30 and I can pick them up at 6:30. Although we don't do that. You can if you needed to. And I pay $390 a month per child.
What? That's crazy. I think
Yeah.
Montessori in Toronto is like at least
Seven,
2000.
yeah,
Yeah.
17 to 2000. So that um my car insurance dropped by like 66% to be exact. The ocean, the salt water, I I'll give you an example of what I did this summer. And it's not just like a one-time thing. I'm saying it's weekly. We pick up the kids around 2:30 to 3 from school. It takes us 15 minutes to get to the beach. We pack our dinner at the beach, like to have at the beach. We'll get in the water, we'll have our dinner, we'll rinse off, and we'll be home for bedtime for like 7. And it's not a big ordeal. Like it's not a big event, where I mean, in Toronto, I was only at the beach maybe once a summer, right? And it was a big, big thing. It was a whole day event. Anyway, so if you love the water, we love the water. I could live at the beach. That was a big selling factor for me. And then being able to get into these multifamilies, right? These properties, and to build that foundation to have passive income. So I go to work, I enjoy my job, but the income I make from my job, I can use it to spend on things I enjoy. So that was important to us. And then job opportunity. The job opportunity here is amazing. So this new role that I've taken with RBC, previously I was a financial advisor, and I'm April 17th, I start as a commercial account manager. The current title, I believe, is relationship manager. In Toronto, I mean, I would have had to have years and years of experience. There's in between my old role and my new role, if you were to, let's call it, climb the corporate ladder, they would have said, there's 3 roles in between they would have wanted me to do. And most likely a lot of people in the GTA have a CPA or chartered accountant background to be able to get this role. And here it's not as competitive. So the opportunity for jobs, for things that you want to do, like it was, I met for this interview, when I met with them, it was talking to them about what I'm passionate about, what I want to learn. And that's how I got this job. And so you want to build your career, you want to build passive income, you want to start a business, you want to have time with your family. I don't know what else to say. I mean, we
That's
love it.
amazing.
One thing that it is missing and it's lacking is a cheap direct flight to Toronto. So I would like to be able to have the option to, like in Europe or in the States, where you can hop on a flight and be there on Friday and come home on Sunday, and it's not a big deal. But we're getting there. We're getting there. There's Flair Airlines now, and Swoop is now in town. So we're getting there.
So it sounds like you're really locked into what was supposed to be a 2-year horizon, and Moncton is now 4 years. And it sounds like if you just finish building your custom house, you're not moving anytime soon. So, do you miss Toronto, and do you plan to come back?
Yeah, I miss we love Toronto for everything it has to offer, but we miss our family and friends. There's like I mean, we born and raised pretty much there, right? So we have a huge family, the both of us. We miss that for the kids, definitely. And so, like I said, we are trying to figure out how we can be home more often and attend events and just be present. But in terms of moving back, at this very moment in our life, it would be when, as of right now, we're here indefinitely, and it would be when we retire. We would want to retire there. Now, obviously, like I've said before, we're always open to change. Nothing's permanent. So if something arises or something happens, of course, like we wouldn't miss an opportunity to move back to Toronto.
So, what is the plan for like the next 5 years? Is it just to continue to build a portfolio, keep building the foundation, keep learning? Like, I might be stealing some of your like answers, so
No,
I'll
no,
try
you're
to.
all of it. I mean, I think in the last, I would say 3 years, we've learned a lot. But the one thing that we've learned is we've also got in the midst of all this, it's great. It is. But like anything is that you're working hard to build that, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of time that goes into it. And there's time that can be taken away from the family and kind of taken away from the initial reason why you were doing this in the first place. So I think we really amped it up that first year. But right now we've reassessed and kind of looked at what do we need? Like, why are we doing this? We're doing this to be able to, like I've said, have that passive income and to do what you love to do. We're not doing this to not be present at home. And it's felt like that this last year. Coincidentally, we had 2 projects at the same time happening, me on mat leave. It's just been a tough year. So I think the next 3 to 5 years, it's reassessing what we have right now and then determining what we want to do in the future. And I think our future plans are to head into commercial, really is where we're heading. And then and then working on our health, really. That, like, our number one thing is working on our health.
When you say commercial, you mean like multifamily?
Multifamily it's still, we're still on like the residential side because we don't have like 6 units or like 6 units or more building. Commercial, I would say multifamily, but in a larger scale. So maybe 24 units plus, or building small communities of homes.
So I got you guys at the right time. So in like 10 years, you guys will be a household name in terms of real estate in East Coast. What's been like my one of my favorite things is just it's not the word failure, but like the other what I call it learning lesson because like you talked about some of the things you guys did that maybe you shouldn't have done, but sometimes you can only learn by doing and experiencing kind of those failures. So for you, what has been a couple of like learning lessons you guys have got in the last couple of years?
In terms of like our like real estate investing, I don't know if there'd be any failures. I would say, but in terms of our learning, I would say to anyone that's investing in multifamily, because we've connected with a lot of people that are, and we're all feeling the same. We're all on the same page. All this passive income really goes to supporting that next project. You don't really necessarily benefit or reap the benefits of it. Hypothetically, yes, the income that's generated here is covering your mortgage expenses, like I said earlier in this call. But if we're already moved on to our next project, it's sustaining the lending for that next project, you see. And so we've never really been able to feel the benefits of this work that we've put in. And so I think the biggest learning that we've had is making sure if we're going to be getting into another project, carve out that time, know how to achieve it. And don't forget, like, we're only this age for so long. Our kids are only this age for so long. So all this work that you're doing, reap the benefits of it today too. Don't wait 10, 15 years to reap that benefits. I'm sure whatever you're doing right now, it's going to benefit you in the future, but it doesn't necessarily, there is no, call it goal or target. We don't need to acquire 50 doors in 2 years, etc. But take time to just assess why you're doing it and then move forward. So that's where we are right now. Sharon and I both are assessing what we're doing right now and then moving forward, knowing that we still need to reap the benefits of all this work that we're doing.
Yeah, when you were speaking, kind of the two words I think of are delayed gratification. And a lot of people that I know that have done well from an investing point of view is delayed gratification. I think it sounds easy, like with Warren Buffett. His strategy is very simple, but it's really hard to execute because we're human. And when we see people making 100% return and we're making like 10, we're like, what are we doing? But, if you look at it, if you have a really long-term horizon and you just delay gratification, like you kind of talked about, that's when you do really well. But it's a simple concept, but it's really hard to execute.
It is a tough one to execute for sure.
If you had a chance to go back in a time machine and visit 16-year-old Sindu, what would you tell her?
Besides buy all the property in the GTA, I think I just tell her you're going to be fine. Like, just, you'll be fine. Like, you don't, like, everything will pan out. Life's going to be good. Keep chasing that real estate dream. And maybe not do accounting, maybe do something else.
And looking forward in terms of your personal legacy, how would you want to be remembered by your friends and family?
I haven't done this in a really long time because I've just been focusing on being a mom right now, but really bringing people together is what I want to be remembered as. Someone who brings family and friends together. It's what I've done all the time. Good laugh, good conversation. Isn't that's really what it's all about, right? So
awesome. Well, I think that's a good segue into the final part of the episode, which is a fun speed run. I like to call it Creator Confessions. I'm going to just say a bunch of statements and you're going to tell me the first thing that pops to mind. Ready?
Yep.
Awesome. Favorite Tamil food?
Oh, dosa.
Favorite show you're watching?
Succession.
Yes, me too. We're in season 3. A place you're itching to travel to after this pandemic is over?
Sri Lanka.
I guess I don't know why I said pandemic. It's pretty much over now.
Yeah.
A fellow Tamil creator you want to give a shout out
to? Yourself. I was just speaking to my dad about you, and he wrote your name down. He has like this little cue card in his pocket with his name down. And he said, Ara's not Tamil. Ara's not Tamil. I said, that's how his name is on like social media. Anyway, so you're going to be Googled by my dad, and I'll tell him what you do. So
you can tell him my full name is Aravindan, and it'll make him happy.
I did. Sharon jumped in and said his name's Aravindan. So no, yourself, and it's for this platform. You're doing such a good job.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Favorite childhood memory?
Growing up in Montreal, we didn't have a car, and so my mom would put us in a stroller and walk to my dad's workplace. She was at home at the time, to pick him up, and we would walk back home together.
Something you like to do for fun outside of work?
Interior design.
Favorite movie of all time, and it could be Tamil or English or both.
Ravenin.
Something that you would benefit from caring less about?
Probably health, because I think I worry so much about that right now. So.
What's a decision you've been putting off for a while?
Going back to work.
Who is somebody that you'd want on your invisible council?
A really good real estate lawyer right now.
So anybody listening, reach out. What's a purchase you've splurged on recently in the last few years that you have no regret about?
This house, this home.
Pet peeve.
Armpits.
If you knew that you were going to die tomorrow, a regret that you would have?
Not reaching out to some of my family members and speaking to them more often.
One of my favorite questions, age you want to retire by?
45.
A book you've read or a podcast you've listened to that's had an impact on you?
Michelle Obama's book,
A belief, behavior, or habit that's improved your life.
Waking Up Early.
What time do you wake up?
Right now, because I'm forced to, like 5:30, but between 5:30 and 6.
And finally, a piece of advice that you want to give to your fellow aspiring Tamil creators out there.
Focus on what you like to do and then do it with a drive.
I like it, short and sweet. Well, Sindhu, thank you so much for jumping on. This was definitely, I wasn't sure what kind of answers I would get today, but it seems like you're doing a really amazing things. And I think somebody listening to this will be really inspired by a number of aspects of your story, which I think is making that move to the East Coast and kind of this financial foundation you've kind of built with real estate. So appreciate you jumping on.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was going to tell Sharon to actually pop in. He said, let me know when you're done. I'm going to come say hi to Ara.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'll end off the podcast here and then we'll
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah. Yeah.
chat. But
Yeah.
for those of you listening, for anybody listening here, what's the best way for someone to reach out to you if they've been inspired by the podcast?
Reach out to me on you can message me on social media. My direct message is there. That would probably be the best way. And then I'll probably send you off my email, and I'd love to connect if anyone has any questions about the East Coast at all.
Awesome. Well, for those of you listening, appreciate you guys as always and look forward to the next episode.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ara.